Good afternoon, dear students. Uh, the last video we have seen about lesson plan format for prose. In this video, we shall see about lesson plan format for poem. Okay. So, as we have seen in the last video, here in poetry also we have the first step of writing or framing the objectives. So here also we have both the general objective and specific objective. So again, general objective is common for all the poetry, and the specific objective is specially designed for the poem which you are going to teach for your students. Okay, so general will be common for all the poetry. Specific objective is specially framed for the class which you are going to take. Okay, so in general objective we have points like comprehend the poetic form of the English language, derive aesthetic pleasure from reciting the poem, acquire the natural rhyme and rhythm of the English language, enrich the imagination towards the poem, enjoy poetry and develop a taste for it. And there are plenty of objective. You can choose your own objective for general as well as specific. Okay, in specific we have recall the information about the poem, and next recite the poem rhythmically with correct pronunciation, stress, etc., and identify the meaning of words, such as you can write any words which have attracted you or which is new in this poem, and grasp the message of the poet. Visualize the figures of speech. All the poem will contain any figures of speech or poetic devices in it, so you have to identify what figures of speech or poetic device the author has used, and you have to teach it for your students. So these are the general and specific objective which you can add. So I have chosen a few objective. You can choose your own objective for your class. So this is not the thing which you should write. So okay, this keep it as an example, and you can write your own objective for your class. Next, as we have seen in the last prose lesson plan format, here also you should write teaching aids, textbook and reference book. So in reference section you can use Oxford dictionary or encyclopedia, or and also you can write some internet resources. Instead of writing reference book, you can write internet resources, and then you should give the link. You should give the link where you have took the resource. Okay, so teaching aid, compulsorily you should use 3 teaching aid for your classroom, and you can use more number of teaching aids too. You should not stand with only 3. You can use 4, 5 or 6 teaching aid, whatever it is. Okay, and you should write the name of the textbook. If it is state board, you should write Tamil Nadu Textbook Corporation. If it is in CBSE, you should write the title or name of the book which is given in your textbook. Okay, so the first step in teaching of poetry is again here is motivation. So all the classes should begin with motivation, and so here you should write the teacher motivates the students by asking some questions, by checking their previous knowledge or whatever it is. As if you have written in teaching of prose, you should write the same kind of motivation here in teaching of poetry, but the motivation part should be different. So you should not tell stories for all the class. You should not show pictures for all the class. For one class you should show pictures, for other class you should tell some stories, or for other class you can bring some models. So your motivation should be different, and your motivation should be very interesting for the students. You should not simply give some uninteresting motivation. So motivation is the important thing before taking the class. So only after motivating, the students will be curious to learn your lesson. So motivation part should be very, very effective. So after motivation, the next step is appreciation of the poem. So appreciation of the poem. In prose we have presentation of the lesson. In poetry we have appreciation of the poem. So again, under this we have the first heading is announcement of the title. The teacher announces the title and writes it on the blackboard. So whenever the teacher announces the title should be written on the blackboard with a different color chalk piece. Okay, so after that, introduction about the author. So the teacher should give an introduction about the author with the help of with the help of chart or with the help of picture or with the help of blackboard. So in the content column, here in the content column you should write the details of the author. For example, the name of the author, when he was born and where he was born, what are his major works. So such kind of informations can be given in the content column. Okay, so in learning experience column you should write the teacher introduces the author with the help of teaching aid, and under that you can draw some pictures about the teaching aids which you are using. Okay, so after announcement of the title, the introduction about the author should be given. So again in specification column you can write the action verb which is used in the learning experience column. And after the introduction about the author, the next step is recitation of the poem by the teacher. So the teacher should recite the poem with correct pronunciation, correct rhythm, stress, intonation, etc., and the students will be listening to the teacher's recitation. So recitation means the poetry should not be read, poetry should be recited. It should not be read like prose, it should be recited like a poem. Okay, so after recitation by the recitation of the poem by the teacher, the next step is explanation and getting feedback. Explanation and getting feedback. So in prose we have explanation and eliciting responses, but here in poetry we have explanation and getting feedback. So the teacher should explain the poem in a simple language so that the students can understand, and after explaining the poem you should get feedback. You should get feedback in the sense you should ask some questions like did you understand the theme of the poem, do you like the theme of the poem, so what is the figures of speech used in this poem. So like that you should make the students to appreciate the beauty and style of the poem, and also the student should be asked questions on the author. So in what mood the author has written the poem, and have you understood his real feelings. So like that question should be asked for the students. So after recitation of the poem by the teacher, explanation and getting feedback, and as if you have the explanation part in prose, in poetry also this explanation is very very important. Okay, so here also you should ask some questions. Those questions can be written in learning experience column as well as evaluation column. So if you are writing questions in learning experience column, that question should have answers. If you are writing questions in evaluation column, no need of writing answers in the evaluation column. You should write only the questions there, not answers in evaluation column. So after explanation and getting feedback, the next step is second recitation by the teacher. So the first recitation by the teacher and then second recitation by the teacher. So in second recitation by the teacher, the students are asked to close their textbook and enjoy the recitation of the teacher. In first recitation, the students will keep their books open. In second recitation, the students should close their book and enjoy the recitation of the poem. So that is the difference between first recitation and second recitation. So after the second recitation, the next step is appreciation of the poem. So here the teacher identifies the figures of speech or the poetic devices which is used in the poem, and the teacher should teach the poetic devices for the students with some examples. Okay, so this is the appreciation of the poem. So again the teacher can ask some questions regarding what is the figures of speech used in this poem, and can you give some example for such kind of figures of speech. So like this questions can also be asked in this step. Okay, and the last step is recitation of the poem by the student. So after the first recitation and second recitation, the third one should be recited by the student. The teacher can ask any one of the students to come forward and recite the poem in front of the whole classroom. Okay, so this is the last step in teaching of poetry, and after that we have a review, assignment and signatures. So recapitulation is the last step of teaching of poetry. In review part you can write 3 or 5 points about the poem which you have taught in this class. Okay, so you can write 3 to 5 points so that you can cover the whole poetry, and home assignment should be given. You can ask 2 or 3 questions one question from the book back, and the other question should be on your own. So the students should think and answer for the question. One question can be asked from the book back question, and the other question should be like own question. Okay.